Oh, okay. Well, yeah, if you already figured out we can clear the floor, I think it's probably.
Jack, you can stop the recording just to save space, but I don't know when we're gonna start. And then once we start, then you can go. Once we start, then you can
The chair. Yeah, that's right. The Jefferson Highway. Is that what it's called? But it ain't, okay.
Swahili word that means freedom. So again, uhuru. Uhuru. Welcome everyone to an evening with Chairman Omali Yeshitela at Uhuru Furniture, which is a 28-year-old institution of economic self-determination of the African People's Education and Defense Fund. Not just a regular store, but one of over 60 African-led institutions of economic and political self-determination led by the Uhuru movement. We have a very exciting program for you guys tonight, which will be featuring a live interview with the Uhuru movement founder and international leader, African People's Socialist Party Chairman Omali Yeshitela. We also want to thank our special guest, Mama Pam of International Concern Family and Friends of Mumia Abu Jamal. We also would like to recognize the African People's Socialist Party leaders and members, my co-MC, African People's Socialist Party North Regional Representative, Tiffany Murphy. Penny Hess, the chairwoman of the African People's Solidarity Committee. And Jesse Lovell, chair of the Uhuru Solidarity Movement. I am Mercedes Harvey. I'm the marketing associate here at Uhuru Furniture and one of your MCs for tonight. Some quick housekeeping announcements. I ask that everyone please silence your cell phones and please no recording without express permission from Bernie Sphere Media. There will be a question and answer period later in the program. Restrooms are located in the back of the store, and literature, including many books by Chairman Omali Yeshitela, the latest issue of the Burning Sphere newspaper, are for sale, and complimentary refreshments are in the front. We want to salute the students at Bassard College in New York who are having a live viewing party of this event, and everyone who is watching online, our audience here at Uhuru Furniture, and those listening from outside the building who couldn't make it into the space today. Also, we want as many people to see this event as possible. So if you could go onto Facebook, you could go to Uhuru Furniture Philly or the Uhuru Solidarity Movement's Facebook page and share the Facebook Live that we are currently streaming so that as many people as possible can see this much needed to hear event. Also, the Uhuru Solidarity Movement is live on YouTube. So if you would like to go on YouTube, you can also share the link from YouTube as well. We are going to get started with the mobilizing group participation dance workout led by our friend Rasak Lawal of Afrobeats Dance Facilitation. Thank you so much and welcome, Rasak.
Hello, everyone. It's such a blessing to be here. Been with Uhuru, I think, going on 3 years now. And I want to leave you guys in a little activity, a little movement. It really empowers me to know that before one of the most impactful revolutionary, the Haitian Revolution, that they went into the, I don't know if you guys know this, but they went into the forest. Do you know what they did in the forest? They danced. They danced to Ogun, one of the most successful ones. And much in that, like, we too, we're gonna dance. We're gonna move this body, this magical piece of being that we rarely use. We're gonna use it to commence. So if you're with me, let me hear Uhuru. All right, we're ready. I'll go ahead and start the music. And I want you to start to move your body, get out of your mind and into your body. If you're in your mind, you're probably sitting there like this, right? If you want to start with your head movements, you can do that. I'm just waiting for music, whenever it starts. We'll start with number one. Other way to the side. Good. And take your head back. Yeah, we came here to do something. This is the way we activate our body. And then down, chin to chest. Good. And then one shoulder behind. The shoulder, good. Thank you all. Good. And put one shoulder. Yeah, just check it out. Here we go. If the universe is gonna answer your prayer, fuck all the 7 billion people that are praying. You gotta shake it up. You gotta let the universe on your. Go, one. Good. Opening up the portal. Beautiful. Yes. Good. And good. Let's do a stretch again. Nice leg stretch. This time, use your arms. Beautiful. And other side. Thank you so much. Thank you. The magic that happens when we move together in unison. There we go. And take your head back. Good. Head back. Excellent. And heads forward. Excellent. And go ahead and roll it. Roll the shoulders one at a time. Roll them back. And again, setting whatever intention it is that you want. This is your time. I'm just up here facilitating. But whatever intention, whatever you're moving closer to, might be in your job, might be a personal matter. I want you to bring that to the forefront, most part of your mind. And you're going to go ahead and bounce it. And shake. Good. And you're going to shake it up, shake it up, shake it up, shake it up. Good. And last one. And bounce. Yes, beautiful. Good. And shake it up, shake it up, shake it up, shake it up, shake it up. Good. And we're gonna take it all the way up and clap on 1, 2, 3. Ooh, very nice. We'll be in sync here. Let's go. And 1, 2, 3. Oh, a little bit too early, somebody. Here we go. And 1, 2, 3. All right, last one, last one. I'm not even gonna count it. Watch it. Oh, you have yourself a round of applause. All right, we'll do song number 2. We're gonna do my music. We'll do song number 2. Let's go ahead and carry it out. And we're gonna cross. Yeah, both hands good. Cross the your shoulder, and you can also grab your ears for this part. Good. Signing off for protection, knowing that you're safe wherever you go, wherever your goals may be. The safety of IMC follows you, and you're guided. Good, and bring it down. Yes, go ahead. This is your time. This is your time. I'm just up here facilitating. Don't look around at the people around you. Here we go. There we go. And we'll sign. Here we go. Here we go. Let's see. Yes. Come on. Let's go. Yes. Reaching up. Beautiful. And up. Yes. Good. There we go. One. Speed it up. Yes. Shake. Good. And roll it back. Beautiful, beautiful, good. Yes. There we go. Oh, you guys look so good from up here. Yes, beautiful, good. And here we go. And double up, come on. Double up. And little do you know, this motion, moving left and right, starts to connect your brain on the left and right side, bringing healing to yourself. Let's go, yes. All right, we're gonna try this, go. We're clearing the path and moving forward. It don't matter if you clear the path, if you're not moving forward like you clear. Let's go. Good. All right, we're gonna see if you guys are paying attention, and we're gonna add. And of course, as you're moving down this path, there'll be the naysayers, the people that want to come for you and stop what you're doing. So you guys will get the shoulders nice and clear to move forward. Yes. Good. That's one. Go. And put everything in the back where it's supposed to be, so you have a clear space to move forward. Keep putting it back. Put the past in the past. And let's tap, go. Right here, go. Pop. Y'all hear me? Pop. Give yourself a lot of if you want to move your feet a little bit on this one, you can. We're going to do this last motion. All right, taking it into our bodies. We're going to clear pathways. We're ensuring that we're moving forward. We're dancing, activating our bodies. We're going to start with the shoulders again. Oh, come on, y'all hear this music. It's not no regular music. It's not classical music, all right? It's music talking to you, whatever language you speak. Thank you, yeah. Good. Now. Tony Robbins calls it state change. All right? Before Tyson enters the ring, he doesn't walk in there like he's going into a cafe. It's a state change. It's a different person walking into that space. In the same way, we change our state to fight for the freedom. No, come on, yes. All right, here we go. And 3 more, did you feel it? Dance. There we go. And reaching up, grabbing down, and protecting. Up. All together. Here we go. All together, all around the room. Here we go. Other side. Try this one. Good. Come on, let's go. And go. Reach up and grab, protect yourself. Thank you guys so much. On all your social media websites, please follow me. I want to bring more movement to those people in the communities that need it the most. Over there. Thank you so much. Yes. Chairman States today. Give it up again for Razak, y'all. Got that blood flowing, got things pumping, so we can go ahead and move on with that program. Uhuru? I can't hear it though. Uhuru? We got a full house in here, and I want to make sure I hear everybody up in here today. It's just that kind of program, it's just that kind of energy. As was mentioned before, my name is Tiffany Murphy. I'm the Northern Regional Representative for the African People's Socialist Party. I'd like to start by saluting my direct leadership, Chairman Omali Yeshitela, Deputy Chair Omali Yeshitela, and the National Central Committee of the APSP, for which I have the honor of sitting on. We are so excited to bring the chairman back to Philly. I know, I'm gonna get it together. I'm gonna adjust. All right. Perfect. We are excited to bring the chairman back to Philly, to UFC particularly, after 3 years. Uhuru? Yes. The chairman is on a national tour to highlight the significance of the leading work of the Uhuru movement and letting everyone know how we can participate in the powerful Hands Off Uhuru, Hands Off Africa campaign as a counteroffensive to the vicious and violent FBI attacks on the chairman, Deputy Chair Omali Yeshitela, and the Uhuru movement. As the chairman states, what happened on July 29th was not a singular attack on individuals, but an attack on all Africans in the African nation. Uhuru. Come on. Can I you know, I'm gonna run it back. I'm gonna run it back because you know I'm a little soft-spoken sometimes. So. As the chairman states, what happened on July 29th was not a singular attack on individuals, but an attack on all Africans and the African nation. Uhuru? All right. There you go. That's the energy I'm looking for. Now, we'll show a short video of the Hands Off Uhuru campaign.
Can someone turn off the lights?
As a federal warrant for this address, keep your hands up and follow orders. This is the FBI. We have a warrant.
They handcuffed me and my wife out here. They wanted me to sit on the curb while they were carrying this out. Something that I refused to do. They wanted my wife to sit on the curb out here, that she refused to do.
As I was coming out, this big old drone met me.
The only revolutionary organization that's done something here on the ground practically for African people is the one that's come under attack. Institution that offers a community radio station, a newspaper, a commercial kitchen, an Aquaba Hall rental space, and community office for our organizers. That was the building that has come under attack.
Yeah, great, what do you need? They want, I don't know. Let's hope better money. All of it.
We will build a movement of white people that says, hands off, we don't care if we lose it.
They see in the African People's Socialist Party a vanguard for the struggle for the liberation of our people. They see that because not just what we do here in the United States, but because we had the temerity to do like Garvey, to do like Malcolm X, and take the struggle of black people around the world.
So as you see, based on the video right here, that the state is the state is the state. The state is put in place to regulate the African community, to keep it under colonial domination. The Uhuru movement is working to build that counteroffensive. So you being here today for today's program is one of many ways that you can show support for the Hands Off Uhuru campaign. During tonight's interview, you'll find out many ways that you can support the Hands Off Uhuru, Hands Off Africa campaign by joining a committee, volunteering and participating in one of our many institutions here in Philadelphia, which includes Uhuru Furniture and Collectibles, the One Africa, One Nation Marketplace, where we just celebrated our 8th annual Uhuru Book Fair and Marketplace, and our many other programs. You can donate your time, talents, you can give material solidarity by making a donation to the defense campaign, and a whole lot more. So make sure before you leave that you sign up to, to pledge your time, talent, and skill to make phone calls, to help with social media, and do anything before this counteroffensive campaign. Uhuru? Y'all know I'm hard again. Uhuru? All right, so next up, I have the honor of introducing a longtime friend and comrade of the party and the Uhuru movement. In 1985, the city of Philadelphia dropped a bomb on the MOVE organization and an entire African community in West Philadelphia, murdering 11 African children, women, and men, and deliberately burning down 62 houses. That act of terror was why the Uhuru movement came to Philadelphia to build a political response with the campaign. Reinforcements are on the way. That is how the party first met Pan Africa, who has never stopped courageously fighting for the rights of African people and actively leads the work to free Mumia Abu-Jamal, who is a political prisoner today. When she heard about the attacks on the party and the Uhuru movement, she was one of the first to step up and say, I will do whatever is needed of me to in defense of the chairman of the Uhuru movement. Please give a warm Uhuru welcome to Mama Pan Africa.
Take this down. Safety song. It's really a pleasure to be here. And I love fighting on
the side of Uhuru and the side of our brother Yeshitela. It reminded me that when they came here in defense of MOVE. In 1985, I was with an 11-year-old child and I was on another activity and I went underground. And when I came back above ground, I saw this poster of this fist coming from the earth. And I remember a minute ago exactly what it said. Do you remember Out of the Ashes?
Anybody remember that?
Out of the Ashes. Well, anyway, out of ashes came the Uhuru organization. And I feel Uhuru, I'm always going to be here on your side. And all because y'all have been the most consistent. And I have said that over and over again. Non-compromising. I went to Florida and where didn't y'all knock a helicopter out the air? Yes. And California, Chicago, with Fred Hampton's mom, we have been several places on the front line together. And today and tomorrow's will always be the same. And our mission is the same. And that is to, number one, defend Black folks and the entire universe of life.
Yeah.
That's not like this. Okay? And we come together, and tell stories. Brother, I'm here just to let you know. Well, not to let you know, because you already know. People who are out there in the audience, if you ever felt a need to stand up now, so you can understand. And our brother Yeshitela is going to run everything down to you about what's going on here. But I want to tell you about a fight that we're dealing with in Philadelphia. I don't know whether the ladies are here from the 40th Street housing situation, and I want to talk something about Ukraine, because I know you won't wrap that up and put it out here so that people can understand. But I think I'll start there, with something that's happening here. I have a sister in the movement who always have taken children in, Black children, who didn't have a place to stay. They did have a place, but they needed to be housed. And one hand washed the other. She got paid for taking care of these children. And I'm telling you something, this sister made sure she didn't allow them to force drugs on them. And she was making appointments and everything for them. And then the pandemic happened. She had to have an operation, and she wasn't doing it anymore. She just went back recently, to get some Black children. They told her that at the top of the list, this is a Black woman, okay, born and raised in the ghettos of Philadelphia. They told her that the only children that was available and at the top of the list are Ukrainians. What the hell do a Black woman in Philadelphia know anything about Ukrainian children? She asked for, well, can I get a Haitian? No. And another thing, when she wanted to take in families, they told her before she couldn't because she didn't want some of the families separated. We don't do that. They told her you can take in a Ukrainian family. Now, I don't know whether these people think we are fools or not. Yes, they do think we're fools. For real. What makes them think that we're going to have Ukrainians bring them into our home? We don't know them. But what we do know is that in Ukraine, they don't like Black folks. They don't like Black folks. And I'm saying, give them a place to stay. How do you tell us when we got Black folks, and then I'm going right on in 40th Street. 40th Street. How many people know about the housing issue in 40th Street? Raise your hand. I'm going to briefly tell you about that. and we have not left Ukraine. And I'm furious. I'm furious about this. All over Philadelphia, they're putting black families and poor white families into the street, Latinos, Puerto Ricans, and in the street. And if you don't have a home, they take your children away from you. And your children is placed in an area where, a lot of times you can't see them. You got to pass the rules in order to see them. 40 years ago, maybe 40, 41, 42, the government gave a land broker some for $1 some land in which they were to build housing there. In that housing they were supposed to build, it was supposed to have been for seniors, black seniors, because they needed a place to stay. They needed decent housing, and yes, they did, and a whole lot more. But here it was 80 houses. Y'all gotta watch me on time, okay? How much time I got? Because I gotta make this story like it, because I want to bring it to the point. 3 minutes? Oh, okay, real quick. In them 40 years, the family lived there. A few years ago, they started cutting off the utilities, wasn't working, the building was falling apart, and they're complaining about it. So last year, the government, and I'll say the government, and the University of Pennsylvania, all the same folks, pulled these people together, the people who bought the land. They thought that they was going to tell them about how they was going to help them. Instead, they told them they had exactly 1 year to get out. And that get out date was July. But because of the rising of the people, and who says enough is a fucking enough, for real. And I knew if I too long, it's coming, right? And but we've been fighting these people for over a year, and we're still fighting them. Now, you talking about elders, there's no place, them things that they give you for housing. You're right, that paperwork, there's no housing. The ones that they showed it was in drug-infested areas. These people for 40 years, they have lived in a community. The children have grown up in a community where there's moms and pops and grandmas, and everybody looked out for everybody. They're trying to shift them here, shift them there, and because they want to build a science center. And I'm saying these elders and these family members, these people that are disabled in wheelchairs, breathing machines, and everything, we ain't got no place to go. They're not going. So long story short, I'm asking people to please come and join in. You got children right now and who are confused about because they're in school now, but they don't know where they're going to be next week. Women, men, children, even blood pressures is going up high. And we gotta fill these people. We gotta help these people. And we gotta come together and let them know. Reverend Barbie was there last week. And all I'm asking Reverend Barbie and the rest of them, when you come, bring your congregation. Don't let it be one day. We need more than one day. We need people to put pressure on, I'm saying, and these people do move by pressure. And them politicians that come there one day, don't bring no damn body else with them. Put pressure on them. Put pressure on these churches and things that's in here. That's what they're doing. The university have not been able to have a function since they came back without these elders and the people in the community and standing with them. So real quick, Mumia Abu Jamal is due in court on October the 19th. This is very important. I just want to say, I know I'm going over this, okay, real quick. And how can we have shut down the entire West Coast for 2 days? How can we have government officials from around the world, President of Cuba, President of France, standing up for me, Charlotte O'Neill from Tanzania, coming over, not only from Tanzania supporting Mumia, but here she is at the prison visiting Mumia. And right now, this government got a decision to make, and that is whether or not Mumia is going to have an appeal. I'm saying that, you know what I'm saying about all of that? And I'm trying to be cool, But how can we at this point be talking about an appeal when he should be released? The evidence show that. The evidence show Trump should be in jail. They should be giving Yaspa brother here, retribution and for coming into his home the way he did. I had some papers with some information on it about where Mumia is at, cases at right now. October the 19th, the criminal justice building, if people can come, 40th Street, if people can go there any day. And you ain't gotta wait for them to start a demonstration. Bring a bullhorn and start talking about it. Take the damn street and let these motherfuckers know. I'm feeling God. I was expressing myself. I'm feeling myself. Because before I go any further, rise up and tear this motherfucker down.
Uhuru. I'm just like Tiffany. I'm really bad at hearing. Uhuru. Thank you so much, Mama Pam, for that powerful statement. Thank you so much. I will definitely go 40th Street becoming involved by myself and with some people I know. To give everyone some background on Chairman Omali Yeshitela, the scope of his work, his leadership of over 50 years, and the important role he plays in the liberation of African people, we have a video to show you. From Garvey to Omali. Can we get the lights, please?
More than 100 years of history of our revolutionary struggle for African liberation and unification is concentrated in the relentless leadership of Chairman Omali Yeshitela and the African People's Socialist Party. In the 1920s, Marcus Garvey, an African born in Jamaica, built the largest ever anti-colonial, anti-imperialist, revolutionary organization of African workers in history. The Universal Negro Improvement Association and African Communities League recruited over 11 million Africans worldwide in the United States, Africa, the Caribbean, Europe, and elsewhere. Their slogan demand was Africa for the Africans, those at home and abroad. Garvey's movement was not a struggle for integration into the colonial capitalist system, but for African independence and Black power. It was an assault on the colonial mode of production, the foundation of the parasitic capitalist world economy built on our enslavement, dispersal, pillage, rape, and theft of resources that holds the world oppressed in its vicious grip up to now. The UNIA built dynamic, anti-colonial economic and cultural institutions such as the Black Cross nurses, factories, grocery stores, restaurants, a printing press, a steamship company called the Black Star Line, and its own incipient military force known as the African Legion. Garvey, and the UNIA represented a magnificent offensive against imperialism. It was for this reason that the US government and its neo-colonial lackeys, including the NAACP and W.E.B. Du Bois, moved to crush Garvey and the UNIA. In 1925, the US government sentenced Marcus Garvey to 5 years in prison. 2 years later, he was deported to Jamaica, derailing the significance of the UNIA.
In the aftermath of Garvey's imprisonment, the overall African liberation movement was reduced to a defensive posture. Instead of fighting for power, assimilationists, petty bourgeois stooges, such as Du Bois, begged for the right to integrate into the colonial capitalist system. The civil rights movement of the 1950s was a continuation of this defensive posture following the elimination of Garvey, who had built the most effective vehicle for the advancement of anti-colonial politics for Africans and oppressed peoples anywhere in the world. Off of the civil rights era, there was the reemergence of the Garvey-influenced movement for Black Power. With the rise of SNCC, Malcolm X, the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense, JOMO, and others, our anti-colonial struggle began to resurface. Again, as with Garvey in the 1920s, our movement for freedom and independence came under attack. The U.S. government's counterinsurgency war crushed the Black Revolution of the 1960s. They jailed and assassinated our leaders. They murdered Malcolm X, Fred Hampton, and over 30 members of the Black Panther Party. They tortured and assassinated Patrice Lumumba in Congo. They overthrew Kwame Nkrumah in Ghana. They murdered Robert Sobukwe in occupied Azania. They wounded, then assassinated Che in Bolivia. Their intention was to destroy forever the revolutionary will of African and other colonized peoples to fight for power and control over our own lives.
Throughout all of this death and mayhem, there was one thread that could not be broken. One emergent force who fought relentlessly to keep the revolution alive. That force is Chairman Omali Yeshitela and the African People's Socialist Party. Though Garvey died in London, England, today, the cry of Africa for Africans continues to resonate because the party is here. Lumumba, Sobukwe, and Nkrumah are dead, but the African Revolution is alive today in Africa because the party is here.
The history of the African Revolution is concentrated within our 50-year history.
Malcolm X, Huey Newton, and Fred Hampton are dead, but the African Revolution lives today throughout the U.S., Europe, Africa, and the world because the party is here. In the face of brutal, dangerous conditions, including assassinations, arrests, beatings, and jailings, the party, under the leadership of Chairman Omali Yeshitela, has been the relentless force rebuilding and maintaining the focus of the international African struggle against colonial domination for the total liberation of Africa and African people. It is our Chairman Omali Yeshitela, whose relentless leadership over the past more than 50 years gives life to the famous declaration by Fred Hampton. You can kill the revolutionary, but you can't kill the revolution. It was our chairman who worked to solve every unresolved problem left behind in the debris of the broken and defeated Black Revolution of the 1960s.
Chairman Omali developed the advanced revolutionary theory, strategy, and organization to tackle every question, including the need for revolutionary theory, the political basis for the Vanguard Party, the role of the electoral arena in the struggle for African freedom, the struggle for reparations as a function of the revolution. The question of white people's responsibility to join in overturning the parasitic colonial capitalist system by working under the party's leadership. And strategic unity with all colonized and oppressed peoples fighting for liberation from the yoke of imperialist domination. Garvey's African fundamentalism of the 20th century is Chairman Omali Yeshitela's African internationalism of today. The UNIA is gone, but the African People's Socialist Party and the African Socialist International are alive and growing. We salute the relentlessness of the chairman and the party on its historic 50th anniversary.
Not only the past struggle, but the future of African people is found in the leadership of Chairman Omali Yeshitela and the African People's Socialist Party. Africa will be free, and African people will be self-determining once again. As Garvey once predicted, when our party is victorious, the red, black, and green flag will fly from the hilltops of Africa. Garvey lives. Africa for the Africans at home and abroad. One Africa, one nation. Long live Chairman Omali Yeshitela. Long live the African People's Socialist Party.
This off to the side.
Yeah. Maybe fold it up. Yeah. There we go. No, we'll use that one.
This is okay.
I'm just use my outside voice. Can y'all hear me? I'll reverberate a little bit. All right, that's okay. Got that support again. All right, so for those who may not have caught it in the video that we just shared, the African People's Socialist Party is celebrating 50 years of revolutionary work, struggle, liberation. Y'all know that's not enough for me, so I'm gonna say it. Okay. On May 25th, 1972, the African People's Socialist Party was founded. So we are celebrating 50 years of revolutionary struggle. Development. Through the period of African internationalism, the party has developed countless economic development institutions, have answered many questions relative to the how we get free, and a whole lot more. So at this point, it is my honor to introduce the founder and leader of the African People's Socialist Party, Uhuru Movement, and the African Socialist International. Chairman Omali Yeshitela has fought for the rights of African people for political and economic power in our own hands. He leads multiple organizations that are united and actively building across the US, including West Africa, East Africa, South Africa, throughout the Caribbean, as well as the UK, Paris, Belgium, and throughout Europe. From his current base in St. Louis, Missouri, the Black Power Blueprint is showing how real change can happen for our communities by building institutions on the ground, including a women's health center and a doula program, a weekly farmers market in a food desert, a green space, beautiful murals, a community garden, and a newly minted basketball court. All for the people, by the people. These are anti-colonial institutions. I can't understate that. This belongs to the people. These are material belongings to the people. These answer the questions of how we feed, clothe, house, and employ ourselves on a material level. He has run for office multiple times himself and led electoral schools to train other community activists to run. There is so much more to be said, so let's give him an opportunity to share. Please give a strong Black hand and a warm welcome for my leadership and the leader of the African nation, Chairman Omali Yeshitela.
Before you begin, Tiffany, Matt. I want to thank everybody for coming out and coming at Tiffany Murphy and the Uhuru family who are responsible for making this happen. I wanted to just take a couple minutes before formally getting into the event itself. First of all of us should acknowledge right now what is happening in Puerto Rico and the Dominican Republic. They've been hit by storms that have resulted in severe flooding. Almost all the power is out in Puerto Rico, with the exception of some of the hospitals and things like that. So it's flooding, mudslides. Similarly, we're looking at that for the Dominican Republic as a consequence of, I wanted to say of a hurricane, but it's not really the hurricane because there's a tendency to attribute this to some kind of forces of nature. It's not the forces of nature that, first of all, put those Africans in Puerto Rico and in Dominican Republic, and then initiated this parasitic relationship, which means that there is no meaningful infrastructure in those places. Because you can have hurricanes and floods and things like that in various other places. I mean, they happen in Baltimore, they happen in St. Louis. And what you're going to see in St. Louis, occasionally a car might be floating down the streets, or you run into deep water that might disable your car for a while. But to see the whole island without power, the entire island without power, and then they're facing mudslides. And when you say the island is without power, well, you can imagine what it means for all of the people there. The same thing is true of Dominican Republic. So I wanted to say that, and I would like for us to have those sisters and brothers on our minds, even as we engage in the discussion that we're going to be having today. The other thing I would like to do is to acknowledge the passing of this morning of Comrade Saladin Muhammad, who at one time was a meaningful fixture right here in Philadelphia. In fact, we worked with Saladin here in Philadelphia. We participated with Saladin in building for the so-called bicentennial without colonies. That's during an era similar to now, where the United States is trying to drum up all kinds of white nationalist patriotism with the bicentennial in 1976, 200 years after having formally committed itself to the theft of this country, so that was 1776, 1976, this mobilization was happening. And one of the prominent organizers of this was the Puerto Rican Socialist Party. And it's interesting that we're looking at Puerto Rico, and the Puerto Rican Socialist Party would be here because, well, it was a bicentennial without colonies, because Puerto Rico's people that recognize themselves as having been colonized as well. Y'all know how Puerto Rico came to be a possession of the United States. I don't have to tell you about that, how they faked the circumstances to start a war with Spain, that this white country that presumed to own Puerto Rico, own Cuba, own some of the other territories. So this war, this fake war, this artificially created war, this fake attack on some ship by Spain and the Cuban port, that the Hirsch Foundation, this major media corporation, they fabricated that. They fabricated the entire thing to start that. And then they started the fight with Spain. They call it the Spanish-American War. And they used this to steal from Spain, Cuba, Puerto Rico, Guam, the Philippines, etc. That's how those became U.S. possessions. It's colonialism that we're talking about. And that's brought us to this meeting, that's brought us to this institution. So I wanted to say that. And Saladin worked with me, or I worked with him, we worked together during this building for this magnificent event that happened here in 1976 with the bicentennial without colonies. He's been around for a long time. I knew him from the late 60s and what have you. He was one of the founding members of the African People's Party. I want us to remember Saladin Muhammad. We had serious disagreements. We had all kinds of philosophical disagreements, and they were severe. But Saladin was serious. And that's what I appreciate about Saladin. He was serious, he was in the trenches, and he was relentless in terms of his participation fighting for what he understood to be the total liberation of Black people. And so I wanted to acknowledge that. And that's what I want to say. And also to recognize Pan Africa. It was said before, earlier on, that the MOVE organization, the attack on the MOVE organization is what brought us here. That's why this institution exists here in Philadelphia, and much of what we do in Philadelphia. Because when they attacked MOVE, it was clear that they wanted to have an exemplary example. This was going to be an example for Black people. I don't care how MOVE perceived it. I don't care how the neighbors perceived it. But when they attacked MOVE, this was to be an example for Black people, period. And we could not let that go unchallenged. So when they attacked MOVE, we put out a newspaper Reinforcements are on the way. We had our organizers come to Philadelphia again to do the work. We had the first African Liberation Day mobilization that happened in Philadelphia, made that year, where we invited all of the anti-colonial movements in Africa to come to Philadelphia, participate in that African Liberation Day, especially in solidarity with the move who had come under this vicious kind of assault, which was to be in solidarity with ourselves. And the fact is, there are people in this room today who, if not then, certainly subsequently became a part of our movement as a consequence of what happened to MOVE. Some of them were people who were MOVE peripherally, supporters of MOVE organization, and I see some of them in the audience right now, and they've been with us all this time. So I wanted to say that this. And I wanted to mention that for another reason too, but I'm going to let Comrade Tiffany take this thing from me because, as you know, I've never seen a soapbox that I could resist.
Thank you so much for that, Chairman. Okay, so here, let's get into our first question. Why did you decide to dedicate your life to liberating African people, the continent of Africa, and all of our resources?
I read something that was attributed to Nat Turner after they had captured him. And they talked to him, and he said that how he had his visions, and that he looked in the sky and he saw white horses fighting black horses, and then there was blood dripping from the trees. And he said that he heard this voice saying, "This you have been cursed to see." And what he meant by that was, once you see the truth, you got to do something about it. You understand? And I truly feel that I fit that category, because a lot of times I didn't want to be here, to tell you the truth. I did not want to be here. But the other thing, my grandmother, she started early on doing political education with me, although I didn't know it was political education. She was using the Bible. And she told me these stories of these heroic figures who would fight against oppression and lead the people to freedom. That's the thing that brought Africans to Christianity, was not some of this other turning water to wine kind of stuff, but because Christianity was seen as by us as a religion of the oppressed. And so my grandmother would do childcare for me, teach me while my mother was at work, and she really pushed that, gave me that. And on one occasion, when I must have been no older than 5 or 6 years old, running around and telling my grandmother that when I get old and get a big car, big houses, and she stopped me and she said, "Why don't you get that for everybody? Then you can have it too, but everybody else can have it." And so I was influenced by that kind of thing. And I guess that I'm lucky to have been born at a time where revolution was the main trend in the whole world. Where I was born in the 1940s. 1947, you saw India become independent. 1949, China became independent. Following that, we saw the Cuban Revolution. Cuba became free. Struggle happening all over South Africa and the world. So it affected my consciousness. In 1950s, what you see, the Korean War. My favorite uncle went to Korea. And so these were the kinds of struggles by people against white power that influenced me. And I wasn't necessarily conscious of it that way. But it didn't take me long to understand that there was something horribly wrong with how we live as black people compared to white people. Because I could read since I was in diapers. And not because I was so smart, but I had an aunt, who taught me to read. She sort of forced it on me, and she taught me to read the newspaper, not through, the little books you get, the newspaper. That's where she taught me how to read. And so I became, really aware of a lot of things as a consequence of that, as a consequence of the life that I experienced. But the thing that always struck me, that I found intolerable, is that everywhere I looked in the world, every book I read, more or less, where I saw white people and saw black people, I saw that black people lived in misery, poverty, violence, ignorance imposed on us, and near states of barbarism from that interpretation. And then white people, every place I saw white people, they lived well. And I had to have an explanation for that, and nobody was giving me a decent explanation for that, because the explanation that prevailed at the time, and it does now too, although it does differently, is that white people have all those things as compared to black people, because white people are more civilized, white people are more thriftier with their money and resources, etc., than are black people. That's the same line that they give us today. You don't wear you wear your pants sagging. That's why you can't work. You can't do this and that, and the whole notion of who is more civilized. And that's a hell of a thing, a burden for an African child to live with. Oh, this is what you're being taught. It has been taught either directly or indirectly. Because if they don't tell us who we are directly, if they don't tell us that it was Africa that brought life to the earth, if they don't, how do you explain then the poverty, the famines and stuff like that you see in Africa? If human life began in Africa, what that tells us is that Africa is friendly to life, not hostile to life. So that if black people are dying in famines and all these other things in Africa, it's not natural. There's something unnatural that has happened, and that unnatural thing is the fact that a parasite has latched itself onto Africa, steals all our resources, takes it from black people, take us from Africa, take our resources, and then give them or transfer them to white people. So what I'm looking at, and when I see white people well off, is the fact that that's the basis for my poverty. My ignorance, the violence that's imposed on me on a regular basis, and I've overtalked it.
Never, Chairman, never. Please. Our next question. What would you say are the key points of your strategy and political theory of African internationalism?
I think central to it is, inferred it just now, in terms of the fact that we recognize that when we look at society, we can't base it on superstition. And we can't base our investigation on society just on what we might call emotions. Because we live, what happens to us makes us emotional as hell. I stay emotional. But we can't base the struggle on the fact that we are emotional. Our emotions should require us to pursue the struggle to the ends of the earth, but we can't base the struggle on the emotions. And so, superstition, Negro preachers, juju, this kind of stuff is not good enough. We need to understand, we had to come to some kind of understanding of how this thing got started. What started this thing? How did it happen? And because there is an assumption, it is in virtually everything that we experience in life, there is an assumption that there's something natural about African people, black people dying early, black people living in violence, black people living in ignorance and things like that. There's an assumption that that's natural, and there's nothing natural about it. Because the truth of the matter is, when we met the Europeans, when we met the white man, the white man was living under feudal domination. Do you know what feudalism is? It is a mode of production. And this mode of production is where the majority of the people are tied to the land. And they can't leave the land. And what they produce, they don't own it for themselves. They only get a portion of it. The majority goes to the landlord. That's where the term landlord comes from. That's where the term in your Bible, the Lord is my shepherd. You didn't know that, did you? That's where it comes from. It's the landlord that owns all the land, and the nobility, kings and queens and things like that y'all like to call yourself. This was the feudalism. And then when you talk about feudalism, you should understand that Europeans lived under feudal domination for something like 1,000 years. poor, impoverished. You've seen the little thing called Naked and Afraid. That was what much of Europe was like. And this is literal truth. There were times where they had no clothing to wear. They ran around naked. And in the 1300s, I've read that especially poor people in England, but I think it was true of much of Europe, poor people in England were so hungry that they ate their dogs, their cats, they ate bird manure, I guess to get the seeds out of that, and their children. I'm saying this because we get fed the stuff that, and this comes from Europe, and especially from England that we're talking about now, that the white man's burden, that the white man left Europe, left England, came to Africa, came to all of these places in order to bring civilization to the rest of us. And so they were chased, they were saying this is what they were there for. They were going to educate, civilize the rest of us. And so, but we've learned better than that. And we understand that what it was that rescued Europe, that brought it out of poverty and disease and ignorance, was not chasing the white man's burden, but it was disease and poverty that chased them out. And that they came, and what rescued them was the 600 years ago, the beginning of this process, when there was no Europe. Listen, there was no such thing as Europe. There was no such thing as the white man. So 600 years ago, Portugal, but up to now, the people who we now refer to as Europeans define themselves primarily not as Europeans, but in relationship to each other and to different ethnic groups that we might call them. The Celts, the Normans, some might say another one. The Franks, etc. This is where they identified themselves primarily. It was only after Portugal began this process of kidnapping African people, and it became such a bounty, such a wealthy thing to do. Even before formal slavery got really traction, capturing African people and off the islands where we were the ones who made the sugar, transformed all of Europe by just the sugar alone. Because the sugar in the diets of Europeans is what allowed them to work longer, do other kinds of things that they could not do before. And that's just one aspect of it. And then there's the wealth. So we see that begins, and this whole process of robbing African people, kidnapping African people, transferring us all around the world, working for free in Africa, working for free here, and in various other places around the world. There's some places that did not exist before. Was no such thing as Puerto Rico, was no such thing as Cuba, was no such thing as Venezuela. All of these are the consequence of the enslavement of African people and transferring African people, colonized African people around the world, while other people were colonized in the process. This is what we understand gave birth to this whole social system. And what we have here then is a parasite. We have a political economy that's based on parasitism. We call this a colonial mode of production. Before this, Europe was tied to a feudal mode of production. This feudal mode of production that the white people were tied to the land, and they worked under the leadership of the landlords, the nobilities, and things like that. What changed that was this capture of black people. This changed overthrew the nobility. What was it that changed Europe so much that nobility had to go? They said, well, some guys wrote some things about democracy. No, what changed Europe was all these resources that's coming now, not from the nobility, coming from these people who are kidnapping black people, who are the so-called explorers, bringing all this gold and resources into Europe. This is what overthrew the so-called the nobility. This is a whole new crew now is arising that we call the capitalists. They emerged on the back of this feudal thing. But capitalism had its basis in what? Colonialism. It was the fact that they had stolen all these black people and all the lands of the people around the world that gave them all this wealth. And so before, you might have had an economy that might have been in quote unquote England or Spain or someplace like that. But now the world is locked into a single economy. You with me on that? A whole new relationship has emerged. The world is locked into a single economy. And that economy is based on parasitism. So that everything that happens in that world economy has its basis in that. When people sing songs, they are singing and making money from it. It's feeding and experiencing this colonial mode of production. The ideas that people have, it stems from that. You don't have to put no white people in no room and then teach them, they just grow up to be racist because they are taught that. No, what teaches them is objective conditions, objective reality, and the relationships that we have each to the economy. And so from this kind of this mode of production, that stems what is referred to often as a superstructure. The superstructure constitutes the ideas, the ideology. It constitutes even culture, religion, and stuff like this reflected in the superstructure. So what people think, how they think about it, how they perceive and understand the world is based on the fact that they live in an economy that gets everything from black people and other colonized people around the world. That's why I can go to Germany, I can go to various other places in the world, and I will find a little black Sambo, or some kind of Sambo type creature, because they all get the resources from the same thing, and you will not have the colonizers say to the world, the reason that we are wealthy, the reason that there are sidewalk cafes in Paris is because we have killed, lynched, murdered black people in Haiti and all around the world and stole every damn thing they got. They will never explain that. What will they say? The reason we got it, because we are smart, we know what to do with it. They had it, didn't know what to do with it, and so we rescued them, and they would even put that in philosophical books. The philosophy would teach that. And they will actually say that if you have a people who don't know what to do with the land, and somebody knows what to do with the land and resources, and they take it, then that's legitimate. Did you know that? Can I say something else?
Please do. Please.
Yeah. I just think it's really important for us to understand this. Then you know how to fight what you fight. Because a parasite, what is the truth about a parasite? What is a parasite? Yeah, it's an entity that lives off another organism. It sucks the blood, it eats it. It's a tick, it's a tapeworm. It's all those nasty things like that. And a parasite, and the one that the parasite feeds on is called a host. An entity is a host. A parasite has to have a host. If you really understand the nature of this system, if you understand we're talking about a colonial mode of production, which is a parasitic mode of production, you're not talking about the consciousness of the parasite. You're not saying, let's go and teach the parasite good manners. You're not saying, let's go and take the parasite to church. You're not saying that the parasite did this because their parents taught them wrong. The fact is the parasite does that because if it doesn't do it, it will die. It will die. And that's why the FBI attacked us on July 29th, because we are trying to deprive the parasite of its host. We are determined to deprive the parasite of its host. This is the science. This is African internationalism that I'm telling you. And I'm also telling you this, that you cannot get on a boat, brothers and sisters and comrades. It's impossible for us to have got on a boat in this instance in 1619 in Africa as Africans, and then to get off in Jamestown, Virginia as Negroes. If we got on the damn boat, when we got on the boat in Africa, we were Africans, we have to be Africans when we got off the boat. Unless there's some kind of magic boat. You understand? We were Africans then, we are Africans now. It's really important for you to understand, because you don't understand this. You don't understand why the hell they keep doing this to you. Because they say they're Americans, and now they say you're Americans. And so you can't understand why Americans would do this stuff to you if you were an American too. But the fact is they got you locked into a parasitic relationship. The fact is that white people, European, are not indigenous to this land. I'm not indigenous to this land. The people who are indigenous to this land, if they're those who survive on concentration camps that they call Indian reservation, that is the truth of the matter. But what has to happen is that this has to be obscured. Otherwise, you see colonialism. So you can't see colonialism because the first thing a thief does when it steals something is scratch the name on. Then write their own name on it. And what you see is that they have claimed this to be America. They are Americans. They even go so far as to talk about an American Indian. Isn't that the most ridiculous thing you ever heard in your life? And then, of course, they finally let you be an Afro-American, African-American, a Black American, or something to that effect. That's one of the nicer things that they've called us in the last period. But we are Africans, and that's a dilemma. It's not a dilemma for us because we are waking up to this more and more every day, because all around the world, what you will see is that African people really understand. And anybody saw my presentation in Oxford? I spoke at Oxford University in 2019, and I was speaking on this debate on whether there should be closer union with Africa, within Africa. And, they asked me, they sent me a letter, not in Angola, they sent me a letter in St. Petersburg, Florida, to ask me to come there to speak on this matter. And there's not a single African who saw that, and more than 2 or 3 million people have seen that who criticize anything, because I was coming from America to Oxford, England. All of us are beginning to understand that we are one people, one Africa, one nation that has been forcibly dispersed and then put down on this land that has been stolen, renamed, like they renamed the land, and then so renaming the land, they disguise who they are, and then they disguise the fact that this is stolen land, stolen resources. And I said, well, that happened a long time ago. It ain't that damn long. It ain't that damn long. In terms of the history, African history is like the blink of an eye. And that's something that really, we should really be aware of. And so, anyway, we are African internationalists. We are Africans. That's what got you in trouble in part, Pam. And whatever you thought, however you was dealing with it, you were some Africans in the middle of Philadelphia who was doing things that you were not supposed to do. Africa, Pam, Africa, John, Africa, all these damn Africans there, and they damn sure were determined to do something about it. Yeah. Africa, because we are everywhere. African people, Africa is everywhere we are. And we're not necessarily always conscious of it. Sometimes we call ourselves Negroes and dog and other kinds of things, but we are African people. And what they are trying to impose on us today. And I'm gonna let you ask the question. Because, listen, I came here, as I said, because of this attack on Move. They dropped a damn bomb on Move. And it was no accident. And the neo-colonial mayor who gave the order, who passed the word, I should say. This Negro ain't gave no order. This Negro ain't gave no order for nothing, Who passed the word, after he did it, said, yes, I did it, and I'd do it again. That's what Wilson Good said. I did it, and I'll do it again. And Wilson Good got elected in part because he was so brutal to black people. I mean, he was reputed to have even hit some Negro pig's wife in the mouth with a blackjack at some kind of pig party that they were having. So, and Rizzo was such a terrorist that much of what called itself the Black Liberation Movement in Philadelphia pulled together this Black United Front to elect this guy, John Good, which, and I had issues with that at the time because Good had no reputation, no history of working with or for black people. He was a Democratic Party hack. That's what he had always been. That's what he was when he ordered that bomb, dropped on our community, what have you, right here in Philadelphia. But that happened again in 1985. But 1978, was it 78? 78, they had also attacked Move. They had done stuff like kill their babies. You understand what I'm saying? Kill their babies. And then they attacked them in broad daylight, 1978. And then cops who were shooting down in the basement at people in the basement, one of them gets shot in the back of the head. And they said people in the basement are the ones who shot him. And the only way that could have happened is he would have been firing backwards over his head while the people in the basement, but his buddies killed him. Right? That's 1978. Some of the most grotesque, brutal examples that you want to see of colonial terror was waged then in 1978. And then, of course, in 1985, they dropped the bomb. Listen. Then, in 1969, we saw the In 1969, the Chicago police, working with the FBI, on December 4th, raided the home of Fred Hampton, their office in West Monroe Street, at 4 o'clock in the morning. And they killed Fred, and they killed Mark Clark. And I'm mentioning this because part of what we are talking about now is hands off Uhuru, hands off Africa. And there's a tradition among the colonizers. When they, we were brought here because of this attack on Move. But it was a brutal attack on Move. And then we went to Chicago. They killed Fred. But the thing that when they came at us in 1996, 300 strong in military force on November 13th. And they used all the tear gas in the city on that Uhuru House. You saw a picture of it earlier on. When they came at us, they brought helicopters. And what people saw, when they saw those helicopters, they saw Move all over again. That's what people told me. People who were reporters, they were there. They said, that's Move all over again that they did. Except in this instance, they ran into a hail of gunfire. And the people brought the helicopter down by gunfire. One of the helicopters down by gunfire. That was in 1996. On July 29th, when the FBI demanded that we come out with our hands up and empty, and I actually exited my house. I was greeted by armored vehicles in front of the house. And these military forces call themselves FBI. And I was greeted by laser targeting on my chest. I mean, a lot of them. They let it be quite clear that you can die now. This is what it was about. And so here are these laser beams bouncing off my chest. And of course, I'm thinking about Fred Hampton. What happened to Fred in December? And yes, they would kill me. I know they would kill me. I knew they would kill me then. But the thing is that we have to struggle. And I'm not just talking about struggle. African internationalism teaches me the nature of the social system and teaches me what holds it together. And the 52 or more institutions that we have created around economic development, displaced and other things, what we're doing is we're depriving the parasite of some of the resources that might be going directly to the parasite. And so the host is now being able to use its own resource to feed itself. That's why we've got, you know, the farm, we've got the market here. That's why we got the One Africa, One Nation farmers market in St. Louis, right across the street from the Uhuru House. That's why we are trying to win and train African people to initiate backyard gardens and things like that. And that's why there's this furniture store, and there's a furniture store in Oakland, and that's why we have commercial kitchens and things like that, so that Africans begin to move some of these resources among ourselves. Now, this is not going to kill the beast by itself. Our objective is to replace the beast. Our objective is not to, we say we are fighting for dual and contending power. Some people say, okay, we fight for dual power. No, this is a power that is founded on contending with the power of the colonizer. This is the power of the colonized that we are raising up, and that's why they had to attack us on July 29th. Go ahead, sister.
Uhuru, thank you, Chairman. Give it up for Chairman, y'all. Goodness gracious. Look, I swear he must have looked at my notes because he's answering all my questions. Just that good. Uhuru. Okay. You know what? I got one. Tell us tell us about your founding of the African People's Solidarity Committee and why organizing white people for reparations under the leadership of African people is an important part of the strategy for African liberation.
Thank you. I really appreciate that question and the ability to talk about this because it hasn't always been the easiest thing to talk about. Because both Africans and North America's white people have a subjective kind of response to this relationship, and not as severe as it used to be in the past. But believe me, when it used to be extraordinarily subjective and crazy. But the fact is that my commitment has always been to defeat a colonial power that dominates our people. We got to be free. That's what it is. And it never made sense to me to just have a politic. Well, let me not say it never made sense, because at one time I was a stone cold black nationalist and I think that this may happen to a lot of African people who I think first have to learn how to hate white people before we can love ourselves. Because there's such a definition of who we are is based on the fact that we are not white and not like white people. And so many of us, whether we're conscious of it or not, often spend much of our lives trying to be like white people or be liked by white people or even be white, you know. So I had to kill the white in me. I had a deep and profound hatred of white people, and I never made up anything on white people. I just knew what white people were doing all around the world. I grew up with it. I grew up with nightmares. Like I said, I could read since I was a toddler, and I didn't know why for many years I would have these dreams about running through woods from white people with dogs and things like this. And I almost fell into this thing of believing that there was some kind of genetic memory there that I had been captured by. But what I finally really understood was I had read about it as a child. When I was learning how to read through the newspapers, I was reading about this stuff, and it really, had an impact on me back then. But there was a time where it was easy to hate white people. It didn't take any effort at all. And it was the easiest explanation as well. It's the easiest explanation. But at some juncture, I came to understand that did not explain to me baby John Duvalier, Papa Doc Duvalier, and didn't explain to me Mobutu, what he was doing to our people there, and didn't explain to me my local preacher and the double-crossing treachery that we were confronted with there. I had to have a better explanation, one. Two, I could, there's no way I could make my brain, I tried, accept the notion that white people were not people. And by which I'm not coming up with some, sympathetic, we are the world kind of nonsense. I'm talking about with brains and legs and arms and eyes and like I got, as well. And that there must be some explanation for why white people behave the way they behave. And initially, I was tell you an experience, and I want to stop this meandering. I joined the U.S. military when I turned 18, and while there, the civil rights movement in this country heated up, and I had begun to organize on, particularly when I came back from Germany to the United States. I was stationed in Fort Benning, Georgia. And the African soldiers who would go on weekend passes and things like that, they would come back. When they came back, all beaten up and blooded by what white people often did to them. And so this was something that I was experiencing. Then the Africans, you know, in the United States, what was happening to us. And it was happening to us in other places too, in Africa. And I'm becoming conscious of this. And so because of this treatment that we were experiencing like on a regular basis, for example, in Albany, Georgia, and I've forgotten exactly the year, this tremendous movement of African people had begun. And the military in Fort Benning, Georgia, they were sending military from Fort Benning, Georgia into Albany. And then they said they were now going to give the African soldiers, we can have guns but no ammunition. This was just the African soldiers, you know, that they were talking about, you know. So, you know, these were like really important experiences I was having. I was going some other place with this discussion, but I had this visceral reaction to white people and I'm in the military at this time, and I'm insane. I'm filled with so much rage and what have you in the military, and was causing a problem. I had begun to organize on the base and begun to write these tracts and put them up everywhere. And so about black people. So they sent me to a psychiatrist. Now, the first they brought a psychiatrist to the base, young white boy, lieutenant, and I scared him. So he got the hell out of there. And then they sent me to the main post, this major, the big psychiatrist. And so I'm going through my rap with him too. And he said, oh, there's nothing wrong with you. You're a Garveyite. I didn't even know what the hell a Garveyite was. You understand? But it was this white boy who told me that. I'm just saying that this is how fixated, you know, like I was, you know, at that particular time. But the fact is that it would be crazy for us to just have policies and politics that did not take into our analysis the existence of white people. You just can't say like the white man is the devil and that's it. Or the white man is some kind of genetic mutation, and that's it. That's not it. I mean, you know, we got all these damn white people, we got all these African people, and we want to be free. So whomever can be won to unity with the liberation of Africa and African people, I want them on my camp. I want them in my camp. I don't give a damn, you know. And the more I came to understand, I came to understand that to the extent we win white people, the colonizers, to an anti-colonial stance, win the colonizers to fight against colonialism. That's never happened before under the leadership of the colonized. That's never happened before in history. And so what we've done, we've created an organization that exists where we have members, white people, colonized people, in more than 130 cities, more than 30 states. What's their work? Reparations. What's their work? They are black power in white faces. We are behind enemy lines now. We have a situation where black power is in the bedrooms, in the living rooms, in the neighborhoods, in the tree-lined streets throughout this country, in some places where you won't only find a handful of African people. I think that makes more sense on the one hand. On the other hand, it forces us to understand some things about the motive force of society. What is the primary motive force in human society? It is the production and reproduction of life. If you ain't got life, you ain't got no culture, you ain't got no DNA, you ain't got none of this other stuff that you say is so relevant. The problem is that Europe came into existence as an entity, and the brains of Europe came into the consciousness of Europe. I'm not talking about the people who now refer to as white, but the consciousness of Europe came about as a consequence of colonialism, of what it is that they were taking from the rest of us. So Europe escaped from the damn landlords in Europe and feudalism by attacking Africa. This is the first time that Europeans and white people ever owned any goddamn thing at all. This land they stole from indigenous people, they stole from Africa, is what gave them birth and consciousness of themselves as a collective entity. You see, this is how this entire entity emerged in history. And so what we have succeeded in doing is creating a movement that will allow the colonizers to escape from this damn relationship, because they're going to die. Because the colonized people of the world are going to be free. This is what has them marching in the streets now saying, you shall not replace us, with torches and everything, because colonized people all around the world are fighting back. This is why in 2020 at the Munich Security Council that's held every year in Munich, Germany, where all the big shots, including Zuckerberg, including people who heads of state, etc., every year they go to Munich for the Munich Security Council in 2020. The thing that troubled them most, the thing that they were grappling with most, is what seemed to be the pending Westlessness. You heard what I just said? Westlessness. The end of what they characterize as the West. The end of what is the white world that came into existence under colonialism. That's their version of what happened in Buffalo, when that white world went in there saying, killing people because he said he was afflicted by some assumption about a replacement theory. The whole white world is contending with that because it rests upon the foundation of colonialism, and the colonized peoples of the world are dark people for the most part. That's why you go any place in this country, you go eat at your favorite place, whether it's white owned or whatever, it's going to be dark persons who serve you. That's why you go to any place where people are service, it's going to be dark people for the most part who are the service, because that's the relationship that we were born into that came about as a consequence of this colonial mode of production. Anyway, that's why there's a solidarity movement. Let me say this. I'm gonna make one other point that's not going to go over as well. Because I also said that the consciousness, this whole thing about the superstructure, the ideas, the ideology, philosophy that comes about as the existence of the colonial mode of production, or any mode of production for that matter. And Karl Marx made a statement that if you really want to see what the hell is going on, you just can't go by the arguments and things that they're making. You got to go see what's changing in the economic basis of society. The ideas are just the things, the words that they use to fight it out over the basis of the society, which is economic and whatever. And so what we're seeing is a tremendous amount of confusion in the world right now. Countries are dissolving, people are splitting and what have you. They're trying to hold all this stuff together. The ideas are the same. Nothing means what it used to mean yesterday. What in the hell does anything mean? That's why, you have this whole question about gender confusions and him, her, they, etc. Because none of the definitions don't work any damn more. The colonial definitions just don't fit because this transformation is happening in the world. because the colonized are in motion. And answer this question. And this is the question that America has to answer, because if I am an African, then who the hell are you? Uhuru.
Uhuru, Chairman. Woo! Goodness gracious. All right, last question. How can people support the Hands Off Uhuru campaign?
I think I heard Comrade Pam say it. It's just do it. But also I want you to go to handsoffuhuru.org, because we want you to come out. We also think that what's going to be a critical thing is November 5th, when we're having a march on the White House. This is something that the Black is Back Coalition that I lead has done annually for the last, I think, 14 years? This will be the 14th year. This is important because the colonizer makes the laws, and the legal system is based on this mode of production. You have heard, and you have heard about the legal system that possession is 99% of ownership. Who the hell would come up with something like that? Except somebody who's stolen somebody, and the only way they can justify is that they got it. You understand? And so the whole legal system is based, on colonialism. And they say that they are claiming I'm an unindicted co-conspirator because they indicted a man in Russia for being an unregistered foreign agent. He's in Russia. And they say that I am employed by him and Russians. And that's why we came up with a genocide tour, 6-city genocide tour. That's why we ran elections in 2017 and 2019. That's why we take the position that we take on Ukraine. That identifies this as a war that was initiated by the United States and the colonial powers against Russia. I didn't have to make that up. Listen, the fact of the matter is, I'm going to share this with you and I'm going to shut up. It's really important because we don't give Africa and ourselves the credit that's due in terms of the influence that we've had on the movement of history in the world. People recognize the significance of the Russian Revolution. It is held up so high, and it should be held up. But what they don't understand is what was it that really made the Russian Revolution possible and necessary? What was it that made, it was the first imperialist world war. The first imperialist world war. And what was that war about? When it comes down to it, it was just like every other war that had to redivide the world. These are bandits who are fighting among themselves to redivide the world. 1884, 85, they had to get together in Berlin, Germany. That's how they carved up Africa, because they're going to go to war with each other. So no, you take this, I take this, etc. So they didn't want to go to war. That's where the Berlin Conference came from. There have been other instances. That's where the League of Nations, after the first imperialist world war was born, so that the white people didn't have to fight each other no more over the loot. So they had the League of Nations. Now you got a parliamentary process so that we can share it out among each other and have peace. They said the League of Nations was for peace. It was. It was for peace among the colonizers, so they didn't have to fight over the black people, colonial resources and booty anymore. So 1917 is when the Russian Revolution happened. What else was happening in the world? You had the World War I. Russia and the Communist Party in Russia under V.I. Lenin was the only communist party in Europe that refused to participate in this war to fighting for the capitalists themselves. Lenin's group was the only one that did. They moved out of the war. In other words, they moved out of this whole contest about who was going to take what parts of black people and all these other people around. That was in 1917. 1918, you want to talk about what's happening now with Russia? 1918, all of the colonial powers in the world, including Japan and the United States, invaded Russia. That was the first invasion. You're looking at what people want to try to count Ukraine as the beginning of it? No, it's not the beginning. They attacked Russia then. Let me just say this about that, because the other thing that was real at this time is the magnificent movement of Marcus Garvey. Marcus Garvey with 11 million black people across the globe uniting with Africa for Africans at home and abroad, and they fight and say who's going to get what part of Africa. In fact, it was that happened at the League of Nations when they were talking about who was going to get Southwest Africa. Marcus Garvey stood up and said, Africa for Africans at home and abroad. This was part of what was happening. 1920s is when you saw the same time frame that we're talking about now. We're talking about a time frame that saw the creation by the French and the British of much of what you call the Middle East. These white people carved it up and shared it out among themselves. That's how Lebanon came into Syria, all these other entities. They were carved up by Europeans. The Peaks, what was it, Peacock, whatever, Sykes-Picot, something like that. The group of white people who did that. Look at what was happening in Venezuela, Nicaragua, in particular, people rising up, fighting against this. So it was colonialism that drove this entire, it was the colonial mode of production. That's the point that I've been making all along, that gave birth to the Russian Revolution, that made the Russian Revolution happen. Now look at 1919, 17, 19, 18, 19, what was happening in this country. Look at what was happening in East St. Louis. Look at the murder, Red Summer, and all of this stuff. The colonial question was exploding all around the world. That was the key critical thing. That was the significance of the colonial question. That's why you are significant. That's why they come to my house at 5 o'clock in the morning with grenades and things like that, talking about the Russians sent me. We sent Russia. It was black people in the Black Revolution that gave rise to the Bolshevik Revolution, not the other way around. And that's something that we need to understand and be clear about. And the only reason that people are not talking about Garvey is because we didn't succeed. They were just like they quote Lenin now. They'd be looking at, what is it, opinions and philosophy and opinions of Marcus Garvey. Otherwise, we're going to still give them something to read, though.
Thank you so much, Chairman. So that concludes our question, our interviewing portion. Give it up again for Chairman Omali Yeshitela, y'all. So we're going to transition.
We're going to transition. I just want to say this final word, that one of the things that distinguishes us is that everybody's got a good conversation. You know, one of my favorite uncles used to say that all the time. The conversation is the cheapest commodity on the block. Everybody's got one. It's not what you say, it's what you do. You understand? And that's the thing that our party, I don't give a damn what anybody says about. First of all, we're transparent. Pick up our newspaper. You see what our program is? You see, you know, they're talking about genocide. They're talking about our, look at our newspaper. You see that for the last 30 years or so, we've been doing the same thing and pushing the same general program. So I think that's really important for you to understand. We are a transparent organization. The thing is that you are not, I wanted to recognize this brother, Kamal. Kamal Bektemba, can you stand up? For a very long time, Kamal, for many years, Kamal Bektemba was the face, or the African face of the Uhuru movement here. I just wanted to acknowledge this brother. And of course, there are other people in here too, Shabaka and some people who I'm not going to name, because I'm not going to call, because at my age, I'm subject to I've forgotten, and I'll get in trouble with that. But so I just wanted to say those things and to acknowledge Kamal and some of the other comrades, and thank you all for your patience, for being with me. Thank you, comrades who organized this. Sister Tiffany is a member of the Central Committee of our party. She represents the northern region of the African People's Socialist Party. She's done an extraordinary job, and under her leadership, the party is the primary organizers and whatever else you would call it of the the One Africa, One Nation flea market that exists here. The region, the northern region, hounds that today. Don't go, y'all. Listen to the rest of this, and there's so much more that we have to get done. Uhuru.
Uhuru. Thank you again, Chairman. Give it up one more time for Chairman Omali Yeshitela, y'all. Uhuru. Yes. Yes. Okay. Please hold your questions. Again, we'll carve out a little time for a question and answer segment. All right. Next up, I'd like to introduce Penny Hess, the chairwoman of the African People's Solidarity Committee, which was founded by Chairman Omali Yeshitela in 1976. Chairwoman Penny was a founding member of APSC and the first white person to take this stand around African leadership. Penny was also a target of the attack by the state because of her courageous stand in unity with the movement for African self-determination and the significance of the Solidarity movement and their work for reparations. Her home was also raided by the FBI at 5 a.m. on July 29. She too was held at gunpoint. Had her door broken in with a battering ram and had all her devices stolen. She'll be giving a APSC statement. Please give it up for Chairwoman Penny Hess, y'all. Uhuru.
Thank you, Tiffany. I want to salute Tiffany Murphy, the leadership of the northern region of African People's Socialist Party. Thank you, Chairman. I think that's about right. And I just want to salute this incredible furniture store, Uhuru Furniture. It's been 3 years since we were able to be here because of this colonial pandemic that we have seen, and this furniture store is beautiful, it's powerful, it is an incredible example of the leadership of the party in building institutions that the chairman talked about, of dual and contending state power in the hands of the African working class here and around the world. I want to salute my leadership. I want to salute the African People's Socialist Party, the 50 years. I want to salute Deputy Chair Omali Yeshitela, who leads the economic front, the political economic front of the African People's Socialist Party, and under whose leadership almost all of us, or all of us actually, members of the African People's Solidarity Committee work in our day-to-day. And in particular, I want to salute Chairman Omali Yeshitela. I want to salute that profound interview that we just heard from you, Chairman. And I want to say that I have the honor of being there when the African People's Solidarity Committee was formed way back in 1976. That's about 46 years ago. And because of the science, the clarity, the humanity of the chairman, of Chairman Omali Yeshitela, the just, like you said, being cursed to see this, you cannot walk away from it. And I knew on that day, in the end of September of 1976 in St. Petersburg, Florida, at this conference forming the African People's Solidarity Committee, that this was something that I wanted to be committed to for my life, because there had to be white people who would be under the leadership of the African Revolution to go back into behind enemy lines, into the white population, to win other white people and to win reparations to African people. And I want to say that on July 29th, the chairman talks about, as he came down the stairs, forced by, armed with assault rifles, about 30 cops, armed military forces standing out there with the red laser beams focused on his chest. They were telling him that they had the power of life and death over him. in this colonial state. And the chairman came down, and within an hour after the end of the raids, which was going on in a total of, I believe, 6 or 7 offices and homes of the African People's Socialist Party in 2 states, the chairman held a press conference, the media came out. The chairman has not stopped fighting for it, just as he has fought for the liberation of African people and Africa for his entire life. And we understand that this is why the chairman and the party was attacked, because it is responsible for keeping alive and fighting to complete the African Revolution, meaning the total liberation of Africa, all the resources of Africa, all of the reparations owed to Africa and African people as one people around the world, wherever they have been forcibly dispersed. If the chairman had just been working to build this furniture store here in Philadelphia, he wouldn't have been attacked. But the chairman, everything that the chairman has done over 50 years and more has been to raise the colonial question, to raise the question that African people must be free. And I was named as one of the co-conspirators, and along with my comrade Jesse Neville, who's also a member of the African People's Solidarity Committee, and the chair of the Uhuru Solidarity Movement, which is part of our mass organization, building in 130 cities throughout the United States that the chairman has talked about. And I want to say that, Chairman, I am deeply honored to be a co-conspirator named by this colonial government, to be a co-conspirator with Chairman Omali Yeshitela, the African Revolution, such a badge of honor to the colonial state. This is, when I look back at all of the years that I have had the honor of being here and beginning, day after day to see more and more what it is, the significance of Chairman Omali Yeshitela in keeping alive the African Revolution. We saw about Marcus Garvey, and that movement was crushed. And we saw Malcolm X, and that movement was crushed. And we saw what they did to Patrice Lumumba in Congo after he told the King of Belgium, these resources in Congo are going to African people, and that signed his death warrant, they say, right then. And they killed him, and they cut him up, they shot him, they cut up his body, and there are people in Belgium today who have his teeth that they are fighting. Even the family of Patrice Lumumba is fighting to have returned to them. This is how sick this system is, because it's built, as the chairman has said, on plunder, on rape, on slaughter of babies and innocent people by the millions. It is based on what the chairman has called the colonial mode of production. And white people have to understand this, because the chairman has told us that it's not about racism. Racism is the ideas in white people's heads, but ideas have a material basis. There is something that makes us think a certain way, and racism will never end until colonialism is wiped off the face of the earth. And that is what the chairman is fighting for, and that's why he is saying that the struggle of African people is a struggle for power. It is a struggle for resources. And the chairman is the only one who has kept this struggle alive after the counterinsurgency of the 1960s, which was as vicious and violent as any counterinsurgency that the US government was waging against any colonized people any place on the planet. And colonized people recognized that. The US state recognized that the African Revolution was the leadership of the revolution, but white people in general and the white left has never recognized that and will not admit that the leadership our class struggle is under the leadership of the African working class, because all white people sit on this pedestal. All of us not only benefited from the enslavement of African people, from the genocide of the indigenous people, all white people participated in it. We have always taken it upon ourselves to embrace the power of the colonial state. The chairman has called it the white people's state. You know, there were lynchings, what they call lynchings of African people for 100 years, of tens of thousands, many more than they officially, note. But no white person went to prison for that. It was legal to do that, just as it was legal in the United States to own African people, to rape African women, to steal African children and turn them into commodities that made everyone from Thomas Jefferson to every other leader of the United States wealthy, and gave white people the ability to climb up the ladder of success, quote unquote, in the land of opportunity, which is based on stolen land, genocide of the indigenous people, and the theft of human beings. I'm going to talk about human trafficking. This is where it started. Everything that we see today, everything, every contradiction is bundled up in this colonial question. And as white people, we can either fight for the ability to solve that on the pedestal of the oppression of African people, or we can be part of playing a role, as the chairman says, behind enemy lines, to be part of the strategy to overturn this system. Who else talks about that? This system has to go. That's what the chairman means by the colonial mode of production. It can't be reformed. It was born this way. This is its DNA: blood and war and suffering and somebody's knee, a cop's knee on George Floyd's neck. This is what it means. All of the African people who are in prison, the largest prison population in the entire world, bigger than China's, which has 3 times the population of the United States. This country, the number of African people that are in prison, 1 out of every 8 people in prison in the entire world is an African person inside the United States. This is the reality. As white people, we can't walk by this anymore because the world has changed. And as the chairman said, the anti-colonial struggle is rising up. People are fighting to be free all around the world. They want the U.S. off their backs. And the formation of the African People's Solidarity Committee, on the one hand, is extremely important because it ends the isolation imposed on the African Revolution. And on the other side, it ends our self-imposed isolation as white people from the rest of the world. As Chairman says, it is a splendid opportunity. It gives us the ability to have a principled relationship, make a self-criticism, pay reparations, turn back over the stolen resources, and join in a project that is winning, that is about the liberation of African people, the liberation of all oppressed and colonized people, and our liberation as well, if we join in a principled stand. And we have work to do inside the belly of the beast. So, we just say, hands off Uhuru, hands off Africa. I call on white people to join the Uhuru Solidarity Movement, pay reparations, join the hands off Uhuru, hands off Africa committee, get organized, get out there. We've got to win other white people to see the future. The only future is the African Revolution and our stand in solidarity and stand of reparations to African people. So, unity through reparations.
Uhuru, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Penny, for that powerful and profound statement. Right now, I would like to introduce my co-partner for the moment. His name is Jesse Neville. He is the chair of the Hulu Solidarity Movement, which is an organization of white people that works under the leadership of the African People's Socialist Party and the Hulu movement, working for reparations to the African community.
Hands off Uhuru! Hands off Uhuru! Unity through reparation! Wow, I just want to start off by giving a round of applause for this incredible event. I want to salute Comrade Treaty hosting this powerful event tonight and express my unity with the statement that was just given by Chairwoman Penny Hess, and salute the incredible interview with Chairman Omali Yeshitela. That was amazing. This has been very powerful. And I also just want to echo the statement that Chairwoman Penny Hess just said, that as someone who was named as an unindicted co-conspirator, that I am very proud and also wear that as a badge of honor to be, in the eyes of the FBI and the US government, a co-conspirator with the African Revolution. And I also want to salute all of you who are co-conspirators in your presence here tonight. And what we're about to do, we are about to put our co-conspiracy, our African revolutionary conspiracy into action by raising resources for the Hands Off Uhuru, Hands Off Africa campaign. So I'll turn it back over to you, please.
Just to repeat what Jesse said, this is an amazing and powerful event. We salute the leadership of Chairman Omali Yeshitela. And again, I want to thank everyone who came out today to hear the chairman speak and to take a stand in defense of the African People's Socialist Party and the Uhuru movement against these vicious attacks by the FBI and the US government. As the chairman has said, we are winning. It is the colonial ruling class who are scared, not us. It is they who feel so threatened by the rise of the African Revolution and the spread of African internationalism around the world that they had to raid the chairman and deputy chair's home with assault rifles and flashbang grenades on the morning of July 29th. It is not a sign of their strength, but of their weakness. They are losing and we are winning. And with this part of the program, we are going to continue winning by raising $5,000 towards the Hands Off Uhuru Legal Defense Committee. Can we make that happen tonight, comrades?
Yes.
I definitely believe that we can. And I just want to say that I want to thank everybody who has already contributed up to now. And just want to mention that the Hands Off Uhuru tour, of which the Days of Reparations to African People tour has been a part, had our first stop in Oakland, California, where $10,000 was raised towards the Hands Off Uhuru campaign. And then we went to Portland, where another $2,000 was raised. And even before that, there were many donors, including many people in this room, who contributed towards the cost of the repairs that the FBI caused, which was up to $40,000 or more in damages that were caused to all of the different properties that the FBI attacked on July 29th, and who also contributed funds to the ability for a legal team to be assembled for the chairman and for the African People's Socialist Party to be able to wage this counteroffensive. So $500,000 is the overall goal that this campaign has set out. We can go to the next slide. To raise for the Uhuru Legal Defense Committee for the Hands Off Uhuru campaign. And tonight, our goal is to get us $5,000 closer to the ultimate goal of raising $500,000.
Thank you, Jesse. This is very important. And again, we are not in a defensive posture whatsoever. We're not waiting for the government to make their next move. We're raising this money because we're going on the counteroffensive. The campaign has assembled a team of lawyers, and we need even more lawyers, not just to defend the chairman and our leadership against the FBI, but to make the FBI have to defend itself against us. We are going to be filing our own affirmative legal action against the U.S. government for its attacks on our democratic rights. The chairman said, let's sue the FBI for violation of the Voting Rights Act of 1965. Here we are, the Uhuru movement, trying to run candidates for office within this democratic process that we supposedly have the right to participate in, and we're met with flashbang grenades. That sounds like Birmingham, Alabama in 1963. What is the difference now compared to that? Let's make the FBI have to answer that question. We can't let them get away with this, and we have to give them a major political problem on their hands.
Right. So I just really appreciate that, and the chairman's been saying that from the very beginning, that this defense campaign is a counter-offensive. It is not just fighting back and pushing back the colonial state, it's pushing forward the African Revolution. And that's what this is about. So they have to defend themselves. They have to explain themselves, and the party is going to force them to have to do that. So, but this is going to take resources. So this $500,000 is the war chest for the Hands Off Uhuru campaign, and it's just the beginning. We have to do these lawsuits. We have to build this legal team. We also have to build this movement. We're going on tour, but we need to go on tour even more. We need to print literature. We need to distribute it far and wide. Mobilize demonstrations, mobilize days of actions, and win this struggle to say, hands off Chairman Omali Yeshitela. And the chairman said the only way this can be won in the courts is if we win it in the streets. That is the only way. And to white people, our responsibility to support this campaign, to donate to this campaign, is a question of our unity and solidarity with the right of African people to organize and advocate for their liberation. So we're going to raise $5,000 tonight. And if we go to the next slide, okay, there it is. Let's keep it going. So here is how you donate. You go to handsoffuhuru.org/donate. You can go right on your phone, handsoffuhuru.org/donate, or you can go to the table in the back. There we go, right there. Jamie with the left card, right there. So if you want to donate, if you want to have somebody else process your information on the website, you can talk to Jamie back here. If you want to go ahead and just do it yourself, you can do it right on your phone at handsoffuhuru.org/donate. There is a pledge card that you got on your way in. Please fill out the pledge card. Even if you are donating online, please fill out the pledge card because we want to be able to thank you. We want to be able to recognize you and appreciate you for your contribution. You can also contribute by check. You make your check out to Uhuru Legal Defense Committee. And you can also pay by cash. So again, everybody, no matter how you donate, we want to encourage you to do so, filling out your pledge card. Again, so we have your information so we can thank you, appreciate you, and be in touch with you about other events that are coming up. And did anyone not get a pledge card? Okay, let me make sure. Raise your hand if you did get a pledge card. If you did. Okay, I didn't see that many hands. Let's make sure. So we're going to make sure everybody has one. All right. So let's get this started.
Yes, let's get this started. Who can put in $5,000 towards our goal tonight? Uhuru? How about 2,500? 1,000? Uhuru, $500? $100? Uhuru. Uhuru. Thank you so much.
We have one hand right here. That's Cheryl S. And okay, 200. All right. So that's, and then we had another hand back here. Yes. 200. You tell us your name. Paula. Uhuru. And I saw another hand for 100, right? Can you tell us your name? Right here. Marianne. Uhuru Marianne. That just Jamie. All right, we're at 1,100. Let's keep it going.
$50.
Oh, there's more.
Renee. Thank you so much, Renee, for your contribution. $25. You have Bud Myers in the back. And we also have Stephen Worth, who's donated $25 today. And also a hand right here. Uhuru, thank you so much. So again, thank you everyone. We've raised.
We're at 1150 plus that we're at 1225.
More dollars into the hands off of Uhuru War Chest to fuel our fight back against the U.S. colonial state and push forward our struggle for the liberation and unification of Africa and African people everywhere. We are winning. Uhuru. And we have another one. Uhuru. Uhuru.
Sorry, there was just a comment on YouTube by someone named Machu Durbin, who said, I don't know if it would be any help lawyer-wise, but Bobby Kennedy Jr. is an attorney with Children's Health Defense. He's been fighting against the corporate monopolist establishment. Might help. I don't know. I just wonder.
Thank you for that comment. And now we're going to turn it over to Tiffany.
Thank you, everybody, for your profound contributions. Hands off of Uhuru. Hands off.
Thank you, Comrades Jesse and Mercedes. Listen, what is happening is the U.S. government. Oh, we're going to do questions or something like that anyway. Yeah. I just want to make it clear that what we are talking about here is not simply defending the right to dissent. That is part of it, right? Freedom of speech and things like that. That's what the country says it believes in. That's what it raised us on. So we have to make it live up, to its own democratic pretensions. But what has to occur is that we have to force into this discussion the right for African people to actually advocate and organize for the liberation of Africa and African people. This is not Jewish Assange, no matter how bad he may be treated, or Chelsea Manning. This is about the right of a whole people to be totally free. That's what it's about. And that's why these resources are really important. We cannot allow them to deny us access to the democratic space that Black people fought for. Any notion of freedom that exists in this country, any notion, has come in the wake of the struggle of Black people in this country. That's what's defined democracy in this country. And so it's really important for us to be able to have access to this democratic space. As I say, be able to say what we want to say, what we believe is necessary. And that's why these resources are so important. That's why lawyers are so important. Somebody said something about Kennedy, well, if you know Kennedy and he'll do it, get him to do it. But to tell me about Kennedy, tell Kennedy about us. That's what has to happen. The thing is that we have to have this democratic space, because what they will attempt to do is to deny us democratic space so that you can't run somebody for office to criticize the United States. You can't do anything to criticize the United States, otherwise you're working for the Russians. They attack us, and then what they do is the only way they drive us underground. You can't criticize the United States, above ground, so they push you underground, and that's something that we cannot allow to happen. We don't voluntarily go underground. We fight to maintain and to actually broaden the political space that's been won by our struggle, the democratic space. So that's what it is that you're giving to. I want to express appreciation for that.
Thank you for that, Chairman, again. All right, next up, we have a short cultural presentation by Laida Garrett. Latika, I'm so sorry, I didn't butcher your name. Yeah, I should have asked. So, Latika Garrett, a young poet who is the cousin of Hassan and Albert Nettles, a family that has played an important role in making Uhuru furniture happen on a daily basis for many years. Give it up again for Sister Latika.
It's called True Hurts. With no offense to white people, your ancestors took our land and y'all should pay. Killing our young still to this day. Never any justice. No one ever has to pay. Locking up black men, leaving women astray. Yeah. Dictating our lives still in our way. Leaving us uneducated, relying on the government to feed our young. Yeah. Stuck in a world, feeling like a man with no tongue. Broken promises, no room left for fun. All these kids dying young, while y'all kids live life so fine. Never given equal opportunity, but y'all still speak of unity. America is ours. Stop, please stop lying. You're happy we dying. Leading us with religion, made to control the mind. But I made my decision. The world is my friend, and we will dominate this earth like true gods within.
We just got an anonymous $500 donation.
I don't know if that's what I heard then, but we just received an anonymous $500 donation. Now, before we transition into our Q&A session, I just want to take a couple minutes again to thank our keynote speaker, Chairman Omali Yeshitela, for a dynamic interview, and just your brilliant analysis and the tireless work that you've done for the past 50 years. That being said, we have a small gift and would like to present it to you. Oh no. If you want things, so we'd like to present this beautiful mask.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
All righty. Thank you again, Chairman. So let's go ahead and transition to our Q&A session. We have about 7 minutes or so to 7 to 10 minutes to dedicate to this particular section. If anyone has a question, just ask that you please line up over here on this side. You can ask your question and then we'll answer as such.
Lift that up.
Okay, Uhuru. I tell people that when I listen to Omali taught me on Sundays, I call that church. I told them that, no, that's my church service, right? So I'm in a doctoral program. You gave a talk about dialectics. You gave like 3 lectures on that. I wanted to know, who do I contact to get copies of those lectures, because Facebook and YouTube make it hard for you to keep track of materials that you need. copies of. So I wanted to know who in the organization is the person I should contact so that I can get copies of those lectures.
I think that would be Keynote. Anai was director of education propaganda. She's also a co-conspirator. She's a young woman in St. Petersburg, Florida. She's over all of our media stuff. So I think that's who it would be. Who has, does someone have the contact information that they might use, she might use to get in touch with the Keynote?
I'll connect.
You can, okay, right.
And
Thank you.
also, got this picture tonight. I think it's so great.
Oh, hold on, thank you so much.
And I have a donation for Omali also,
Oh,
besides the hands-off.
Splendid, splendid.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
All right, peace.
All right. Good. Hold on. Was that?
Does anyone else have any questions? Come on, don't be shy now. Have you a poll? You don't have any questions, we're in the question and answer section. That's all. I am a civil rights baby, so I'm grown up during that whole tumultuous period, right? And,
Where did you grow up? Where were you involved? Here?
Yeah,
Okay,
we're born and raised here. I mean, parents took me down on March and all that.
Right.
I learned a lot in my journey through life. One question I had, do you have a cachet of lawyers, you know what I mean, on your side? Because I'm used to civil rights the way they did it, you know, you have the NAACP and they have their lawyers and all that. I mean, do you have?
That's the thing that we're struggling with. That's why we have to raise a lot of money. We have lawyers who've indicated willingness to work with us. I think we've identified a lawyer for each, right now, each of the co-conspirators, and that's up until indictment. But like it was stated, we don't want to sit around just allowing them to keep some kind of legal initiative. They need to defend themselves. I mean, they're the ones who said I have the right to free speech. They're the ones, you know, who said that that we're supposed to be free and equal and all of that. And so they need to be. They said I have voters' right. That I organized throughout the South to register Black people to vote. And now they come to my house at 5 o'clock in the morning with grenades, saying that the Russians are responsible for the campaigns that we did in 2017, 2019. So it's an attack on the voting rights of African people. They should have to answer to that.
Yeah, I think you're right, because I know you guys have been around for a long time.
Yeah.
You're a peaceful organization.
Yes.
Okay, I know that. I know you guys have been around for a long time, so that's why I don't understand why they did this. I mean, unless they have gotten totally paranoid because of COVID and all.
They're bad. But remember this, even W.E.B. Du Bois, who was one of the founding members of the NAACP that you just mentioned, was charged for the very same thing they are claiming I am guilty of. He was put on trial in 1951 or 52. He was actually put on trial for this very same thing, saying that he was working for the Russians. And they did that to W.E.B. They did that to Paul Robeson. They brought him before the House Un-American Activities Committee. Of course, the FBI found it, cut his teeth attacking Marcus Garvey.
Okay, but different time. They were paranoid then.
No, it's not about them being paranoid.
What I'm saying is during that period, you know, we had the whole thing in Hollywood about, you know, the Russians, and I mean, they were pulling everybody, the actors in there and all that. But now, I mean, there's no reason to. You know what I mean? It's like we don't have that type of relationship with Russia. It's not a Cold War with them right now. You understand what I'm saying? So I don't understand now all of a sudden, out of the blue, they're coming to attack you. You've been around for a long time.
Yeah, what I'm saying is that they never was about the Russians. It was about us. And they just used the Russians as an excuse when they did.
But you've still been around a long time. It's like all of a sudden they discovered you.
Oh no, they haven't. I mean, they've been. My house was firebombed in maybe 1990 or something, and my children almost killed. They attacked. I was talking a moment ago, 300 strong in 1996. They attacked our building with the intent to kill them. They brought helicopters and probably would have killed if the community hadn't come out and shot it down. So it ain't just started. And we are part of a continuum. That's why I mentioned, you say that Du Bois was a different time and Garvey was a different time. We're the same black people. We represent the same black problem that they have to contain in order to maintain some element of a successful social system that's based on parasitism. It was a parasite when Garvey was there. It was a parasite when Nat Turner was around. It's a parasite today. It's never not been a parasite. And that's why I think it's really important for us to understand that we are part of a continuum. There's a mode of production that's at work here. Doesn't matter if it's Trump or Biden and who, I don't even want to go into that discussion, but it's so insane. But yeah, that's what I would say.
So you need some lawyers who are working as lawyers, but who do on the side do pro bono work for you.
That would be helpful, but that's why we got to raise as much money as possible because we have to raise as much money as possible because we cannot be in this situation of every generation we look up, they're martyrs, they leave martyrs. No evidence of a struggle. Like I said, I was talking about Marcus Garvey, and this white man who was a psychiatrist had to tell me, you're a Garveyite. And so every generation we have to rediscover what this movement is all about. It shouldn't have to be like that. And it will never be like that as a consequence of the existence of the African People's Socialist Party. That's what the 50 years mean. But what I'm also saying is that we have a responsibility to survive. And if I can't survive physically, or if I can't survive outside of a prison wall, this movement has to survive and it has to prosper. And so when we talk about lawyers, it's not a matter of just defense. We use the lawyers to make a counter-offensive. They started it. It's a matter of jujitsu, where you use the weight of the enemy against it. So they come, I mean, look at this. We're in the most economically depressed sector of St. Louis when they come to my house. They come with elements of the most powerful, arguably the most powerful military force in the world. What in the hell are they doing on Redbud Avenue in St. Louis? These were not some guys with suits and ties knocking on the door and saying we have a warrant or something like that. They come in armored vehicles. They in the back of my house in the stairwell exploding grenades in the back of my house. My wife comes out behind me and a drone almost hits her in the face going up the stairs in my house. This is not unusual. The thing that you and I have to really grapple with is the existence of black people in the world. That everything goes. There is no law that protects us. There's no law that protects us. I mean, slavery was legal. They didn't break the law. In fact, after Nat Turner got away and they captured him, they put him on trial. But here's what you must remember. They found him guilty when he was on trial. But if they had found him innocent, he wouldn't have been free. And that's our relationship today. They drag us, and if we're lucky, they'll make it to a courtroom. Otherwise, they'll assassinate you with a knee in the neck or any other way they want to get drop a bomb on your house. Lynching happens every day. Our existence is filled with it. And that's the message I want to bring to all of us. That there's something unnatural about the life that's been imposed on us as black people, and we cannot tolerate it. There's something unnatural. We are Africans. We brought human life. Human life started in Africa. It didn't start in Philadelphia. It started in Africa. Human civilization started in Africa. We are Africans. We have a responsibility, not only to ourselves and to those who are going to follow us. We have a responsibility to everybody who's passed through history that's been trying to represent us as a people, and we have to live up to it. And no damn grenades at 5 o'clock in the morning should be able to return that. So I know I answered longer than the time that you gave us for this. But I thank you, sister, for raising that question. But the question of lawyers is very important. And while we have some lawyers, we need a bunch of more lawyers. We need an army of lawyers that we can deploy, again, so that we're not just victims, just sitting around waiting for them to make the next move. Now, we should be making moves. And we can't make moves unless we have money. We have to have money, we have to have resources, we have to have lawyers and people who would take that on. And that's critical. That's what I mean in terms part. Like forces who are lawyers and who have resources, etc., and then to deny them at this point. And this is what happens to the Black liberation movement every time. Every time. You can't get a damn lawyer. What they're doing is pushing us underground, pushing us into premature activity, and not allowing us to use the democratic space that we fought for. We need all that space. I need to keep being able to run people for office and run and to say that we are against the genocide that's being committed against Black people. We need to put it on the ballot. We need to put Black community control of the police on the ballot. We need to put reparations on the ballot. They need to keep doing that on the ballot. We need all that access. And we can't, that's the democratic space that we require. Ain't that right? So that's what we fight. So I hope that if there are any lawyers and you have access to lawyers and things like that, that you can talk to them. Because they have responsibilities too. Because the thing is that, it's really tiresome to hear, some of our friends who love us, love us so damn much, and they are so militant in their discussions, etc., but they do not give us access to what we need. And what we need is that resources, we need the lawyers, and we need the money for lawyers and whatever, because you're going to charge us. You're going to charge us for that. So we need to be able to have access to that. That's the responsibility of any force that calls itself some kind of solidarity, a democratic force, or anti-imperialist, or something to that effect, even anti-racist, quote unquote. Yeah.
Uhuru. Before we close for the night, I just want to thank everyone who came out, who streamed us via live, who watched on live, commented, and donated. We appreciate you all for your time, taking the time out today to spend with us and Chairman Omali Yeshitela. I want to wrap this up with a few brief announcements. Join the African People's Education and Defense Fund Hands-Off Uhuru kickoff meeting on Zoom with the African People's Education and Defense Fund President, Omali Yeshitela, on Monday, October 3rd at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. There's a flyer for this in the packet that you got at the door. So if you didn't get a packet at the door, make sure that you walk over to the front desk and get your packet. Also, join a weekly study group led by Chairman Omali Yeshitela on Facebook and YouTube every Sunday at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. Also, join the National March for Reparations to African People, October 5th and 6th in St. Louis, Missouri. Get on the bus from Philly to DC for the Black is Back March on the White House, November 5th and 6th. For more information, contact 267-875-3532. Also, we have a big sale at Uhuru Furniture and Collectibles through the end of September. 15% off store-wide and buy one, get one free on all art, lamps, mirrors, and single chairs. Again, thank you for coming out tonight. Uhuru. Also, we had 2 more donations within the last 5 minutes. Brenda Farrington donated $400, and Virginia Wilson donated $100.
It's actually just 200 for Brenda.
I'm sorry, it's just 200 from Brenda. Uhuru.
Yes, 100 from Virginia and 200 from Brenda.
total is $1,895.
$1,895.
Another $20.
Oh, $1,915.
$1,915. Thank you.
I'll do, was that 85? Yeah, 2,000.
So we are at 2,000 now. Thank you, Jesse.
Overall, comrades, all right, so that concludes our programming for this evening. The chairman will be available to sign copies of his book and other materials. If people will choose to, get an autograph, there are light refreshments in the back. So we just really, really appreciate everyone coming and engaging and participating and most importantly, struggling and supporting. This is what the work is all about, you showing up. Hands off Uhuru, hands off Africa. Uhuru.
We gotta move the mics at the podium and just out of the way.
Oh, we gotta end. Hold on.